Have you been playing the waiting game instead of taking action towards your goals, dreams, writing a book, starting a business, building a brand? The waiting game ends up being the number one reason why people don't reach their full potential. Now, sure, waiting could mean spending time, but the wait that I'm referring to here is the who am I to game. The waiting game of looping in your mind, who am I to write a book? Who am I to start a business? Who am I to take a stand? Who am I to teach and get paid for it based on my knowledge and experience? And it turns out that after working with dozens of authors in very deep one-to-one fashions and hundreds through online, training, live events, entrepreneurs, authors alike, all seem to have this loop that's asking, who am I to really do this? And I can tell you in this video, I want to give you a tool that will help overcome that right away so you can stop waiting and start taking action and making progress, confident that you are enough to help and serve others. And so to illustrate this, the concept that I'll use is a spectrum. And on the one end is the first-time entrepreneur, the first-time author, somebody who's just about to take the first steps on their endeavor. And on the other end of the spectrum is the world's foremost expert. So let's look at it like entrepreneurs. And everybody else, including myself, is somewhere in between. All right, so on the one hand, you've got the first-time entrepreneur, and on the other hand, you've got Richard Branson, right? 300 businesses, billionaire. But is it appropriate for Richard Branson to teach the first-time entrepreneur the mechanics and ins and outs of starting and growing a business? Sure, he probably could, but it's definitely not the best use of his time, and it's also so far beyond the first-timer's grasp that it may not actually, those lessons may not sink in. So what's the solution? Well, everybody else is on this spectrum. You, myself, everybody that started taking action down a path. And if you instead reframe the question of who am I to teach entrepreneurship? I'm not Richard Branson. And instead say, who can I help that's a couple steps behind me on this journey? Looked at from their perspective, how can you find somebody that's a few months or years down the path that you want to go on and engage them to help you? They're more attuned to the day-to-day struggles and moving towards accomplishing those goals than somebody that's years or decades down the path. And it's actually more relevant and appropriate that somebody who's doing exactly what you want to be doing teach you how to do exactly that. Well, that can be you in any field where you've gotten some accomplishments, gained some experience, and are therefore somewhere further down the spectrum. So instead of saying, who am I to do this and that, say, who can I help? Who can I serve that's in the position I was in a few months or years ago? And truly, some of the best books, some of the best businesses and products and brands were developed by people that were serving their former selves. And truly, when I wrote Lifestyle Entrepreneur, the question in my mind was, how can I write a book that I would have loved to read when I was 19, 20 years old? And ultimately, that's the book that I wrote. Instead of saying, hey, I'm not Richard Branson, who am I to teach and talk about entrepreneurship? I said, well, I've got 10 years of experience and have taken a non-traditional approach to business and life. And I bet you there's a bunch of other people out there who would benefit from that knowledge. That was the approach that I took with Lifestyle Entrepreneur. That's the approach that you can take in your book or business or brand, is really reorienting towards service and how can you help people that want to be in the position you're at and beyond. And how can you do that authentically and congruently where the focus is on them instead of your own perceived inadequacies? So just like it doesn't make sense for the world's foremost expert to teach the first timer, it makes perfect sense for you to teach somebody that's where you were a few months or years ago. And that's how you stop playing the waiting game and start taking action and being of service. So I hope that this serves you, and I'll see you in a future video. Thank you, and to your success.